Entergy is proud to support programming on LPB and greener practices that preserve Louisiana.
The goal of our environmental and sustainability initiatives really is to ensure that our kids and future generations can be left with a cleaner planet.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
Singapore, Germany, South Korea, New Zealand. This is a winnable battle.
A doctor's dose of encouragement and common sense as virus numbers surge.
This is a crisis. People are losing their lives.
Congressman Richmond speaking out the fiery debate that went viral.
We need to not lose sight of those and make sure that we're ready to jump on those as soon as we can.
Keeping essential programs a priority no matter what.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natasha Williams.
And I'm Moreau. Much more on those top stories in a moment on this week's edition of SWI. But first, soaring coronavirus infections leading the governor to pause the state's reopening process, staying in phase 2 for potentially 28 days.
That order is in effect today. What it does is leave in place occupancy and other restrictions from phase 2, but it adds a crowd size limit of 250 to indoor gatherings. Since Monday, the state has seen more than 3,600 new COVID-19 cases.
Now, at this morning's Resilient Louisiana meeting, the governor and Assistant Health Secretary Dr. Alex Biu told the group that examines the state's economy in a pandemic why pausing now was the thing to do.
As of yesterday, we gave up all the gains on hospitalizations that we had made over the course of June. We are now back to where we were at the end of May. And so that's a real challenge for us as well.
This increase that you see here in the epi curve, this sort of takeoff that's red, is real. This is not testing. This is not just we're looking for more places and we're finding more places. These are people in the community with COVID and significant increases there.
And coming up, more from the governor and other health leaders. But now let's look at other headlines making news around the state. Louisiana's Lane Hardy, the 2019 American Idol, says he has been diagnosed with COVID-19. His symptoms are mild and he is recovering at home in Livingston under quarantine. He writes on Facebook and Instagram, "This wasn't what I expected on the first day of summer. Y'all stay safe and healthy." A group of New Orleans health and safety officials will help the city crack down on large gatherings that don't comply with social distancing orders. This as Louisiana deals with a surge of new COVID-19 cases. Mayor LaToya Cantrell says the task force will include city building code inspectors and state fire marshal officers. A federal judge has thrown out a lawsuit challenging the state's emergency plan for elections this summer, a plan put together in response to the coronavirus. Crafted by Secretary of State Kyle Ardoin and approved by state lawmakers in April, it increased early voting by 6 days and expanded mail-in balloting options. The federal government is giving $840,000 to 12 states for the task force assembled to find ways to reduce the low-oxygen dead zone that forms every year off our coast. The task force has been around since 1997, but their work has had little impact on the size of the dead zone. State colleges are returning at least $24 million to students because the academic year was interrupted by the coronavirus outbreak. LSU is doling out the largest amount in refunds at $4.4 million. The University of Louisiana at Lafayette is sending back $3.8 million, and Southern University in Baton Rouge $3.5 million to its students. Governor John Bel Edwards signed a bill to make daylight saving time a thing of the past, pending federal approval. The bill would adopt daylight saving time as year-round time. The governor says a key to his decision was a conversation with seniors at a nursing home. They asked to keep daylight saving year-round, saying it allowed their loved ones to visit and get home before dark. A number of other states are also looking to do away with the time change. A state tourist commission says it's doing away with its promotional slogan that touts New Orleans plantation country. The The River Parishes Tourist Commission says the plantation reference failed to recognize the reality of slavery and was not inclusive of other attractions. Major brands like Pinterest also announced they would no longer promote content that glorifies or romanticizes Southern plantation history.
Students will be wearing masks and washing their hands many more times a day when Louisiana schools reopen in the 2020-2021 school year in order to reduce the spread of the coronavirus.
Yeah, these requirements were set and they'll be enforced by the State Department of Health, according to Education Superintendent Cade Brumley. His department released 2 pages of reopening health requirements and another 14 suggestions at a news conference this week.
The special session of the legislature is heading into its final days. It ends Tuesday, June 30th. It's been a busy week at the state capitol, and here are some of the headlines.
A Senate committee on Wednesday passed a version of the state's budget for the upcoming fiscal year and several other bills that could impact the state's finances, including freezing pay raises for state employees. The bill approved by the Senate Finance Committee would use $90 million from the state's rainy day fund to fill budget shortfalls caused by an estimated $1 billion in revenue losses. This committee also passed 3 other bills Wednesday that would give about $9.6 million in tax breaks next year to hotels, retailers, and restaurants trying to recover from the shutdown from the virus, which has caused more than 300,000 Louisianans to file for unemployment. A racially charged debate on the House floor about a resolution to establish a task force to make recommendations about policing ended with remarks from Representative Ted James about his own experiences with law enforcement. The House approved the resolution 99-0, but only after Republicans had pushed privately before the debate to remove references to George Floyd, the black man who died when a white police officer in Minneapolis knelt on his neck for more than 8 minutes. Representative Blake Miguez proposed the amendment to remove any mention of Floyd's death. House members passed it 67-32. Louisiana K-12 schools and colleges will receive sweeping protections against civil lawsuits from students and teachers who contracted an infectious disease, including COVID-19, under a bill that won overwhelming support Tuesday from the State House. The measure by Republican Representative Buddy Mincy, a former Livingston Parish School Board member, would keep people exposed to an infectious disease at a school or school facility from being able to sue for damages unless they could prove the high legal standard of grossly negligent or wanton or reckless misconduct. Governor John Bel Edwards' administration and Treasurer John Schroeder Wednesday said they struck a deal on ending a 3-year dispute over Louisiana's unclaimed property money that has tied up millions of dollars earmarked for government programs in litigation. The resolution is contained in legislation by Senator Mike Fessy, which won easy support Wednesday from the House Appropriations Committee, and is only steps from final passage. The plan would free up millions to spend in the upcoming budget as Edward wants, but keeps the unclaimed property money locked up in a trust like Schroeder wants.
Well, the desired path that we were on in terms of declining cases with the coronavirus and fewer serious cases is no more. Like so many states, Louisiana is now seeing virus infections escalate. Health leaders say it's proving 2 things. When we keep some distance from one another and follow other guidelines, we're okay. When we don't, we get in trouble, which is where we are now. People have gathered shoulder to shoulder since restrictions loosened, and we've seen the largest single-day rises in COVID cases since the height of the outbreak in early April. The governor arrived at his Wednesday news briefing at the state capitol wearing a mask.
Yesterday, we reported a very large number of cases, and we're reporting a large number of cases today. And I think these numbers make crystal clear the correctness of the decision not to move forward. We're just not ready.
State health officials trace the spike in cases to cluster events. In Baton Rouge, 100 people newly infected after a weekend partying at Tigerland bars near LSU. In New Orleans, it was graduation parties serving as a host for outbreaks. Hundreds packed into a short-term downtown rental before the state fire marshal shut it down. I talked with Dr. Rebekah, the state's former health secretary, who now heads up LSU's Healthcare Services Division.
There were some really strong reasons to pause.
The improvements we've seen for the month of June are now erased. We see the numbers of the percent of people who are tested go up from 5 to a little over 7%. We're seeing the case numbers increase, and we're seeing people get a little sloppy. In fact, The movement patterns, as we look at iPhone trends and so on around the state, look about like they did pre-COVID.
Dr. Geese says we know what behavior helps.
3 just simple things. Wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask. We've done such a great job here in Louisiana doing those things. We've taken care of each other. We've been a national model. We've just got to be reminded how important that is and get back to it. Look, we've got virus fatigue. As my husband likes to say, we may be done with this virus, but the virus is not done with us. Right? So we've got to remember that nobody's our enemy. This isn't a political issue. It's not a cultural issue. It's not a political or social statement. It's a virus. It behaves like a virus.
She says what viruses do is they spread from one person to another when they're in close contact.
Yes, we're going to see more cases because we're testing more. But when we see an increased percentage of those tests coming back positive, that tells us without a doubt that the virus is spreading in our community. We also know that less than 10% of the new cases are in congregate settings. So not only is the virus growing, it is community spread. That's what's causing this.
Research shows 95% of the new cases is from community spread, and the top age group is younger people, 18 to 29.
You're going to have the cases whether you test or not, right? But if you don't test, you don't know where the cases are, and you can't implement strategies in order to try to get them under control.
The state's mantra remains a lot of testing and contact tracing.
Right now, we have conducted right at 650,000 tests since the start of this public health emergency. You know that our monthly goal for May and June is 200,000 tests. Here we are on June the 24th. We have conducted 245,375 tests thus far in the month of June. And in fact, over 30,000 tests just in the last 2 days.
The state is doubling and tripling efforts to implore people to know the facts and do the right thing. For example, State Health Officer Dr. Jimmy Guidry this week dispelling myths about wearing a mask.
In the grand scheme of things, it's not asking too much.
Science is showing these are tools that work, what we can do as we wait for a vaccine.
The world's future hangs in the balance of a creation of a vaccine. The vaccine, when developed, and it will be developed, will allow us all to resume normal life, will allow folks who have cancer or who are elderly to get back out again and enjoy the things they did before. This is because we're hopeful for a vaccine. Let's remember that, and let's stop this anti-vax movement. This is just ridiculous. Vaccines are the most important discovery and science in our human history. One day life will go back to normal. It'll be much more it'll be different. We'll all remember this, but we're not there yet. We're not at the new normal yet. We're still in phase 1. We didn't kill the virus. We didn't, get conquered. The good news is, though, let's look at things. Let's say some countries' names: Singapore, Germany, South Korea, New Zealand. This is a winnable battle. We know this because we've seen millions of people do it. So Americans, we like to have our independence. We don't want anyone to tell us what to do. But gee, the quicker we listen and do what we're told by public health officials, the sooner this will be over.
Also, if there's evidence that more than a week of protests over police brutality and racism have compounded a recent rise in the new coronavirus cases across New Orleans, it's not showing up in the data. That's what the city's health director, Dr. Jennifer Avegno, said Wednesday. The governor says he will continue to pore over data week by week and look at further changes in restrictions. By the way, PAR, Public Affairs Research Council, continues to track COVID-19 numbers daily, and you can see that for yourself if you check out the link on your screen.
More now on the coronavirus surge. We asked Congressman Richmond his outlook on the coronavirus uptick in our state. He has a message for his fellow Louisianans as we battle the deadly virus.
Louisiana, we're number 1 in obesity. We're number 1 in diabetes. And I believe that those are real factors in not surviving COVID. We should treat it like the killer that it is, and be as cautious as possible. A little inconvenience or a lot of inconvenience that saves lives is something that's worth it. But also it shows that leadership matters. words matter. So Louisiana, yeah, we'll be stuck in phase 2 for a little while longer. Not because of New Orleans, that used to be a hot spot, not because of Baton Rouge, that is a hot spot, but because of the Acadiana area, where their leadership decided to stand up and say, we don't have to wear a mask. We don't have to social distance. That this was all overreactions by Democrats. And now they are spiking, they're clustered. And that's a problem. And I'm just asking the people in Louisiana, mask up, treat it like the killer that it is. Because if you invite 20 or 30 people over to your house or have a gathering, the likelihood one will not live to survive COVID.
The bill is called the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The legislation overwhelmingly passed the House yesterday and was brought about by the death of George Floyd, who was killed in police custody in Minneapolis. The bill sparked a fiery debate between lawmakers Matt Gaetz and Cedric Richmond, who accused Republicans of stalling. That debate went viral. We talked to Congressman Richmond about the dust-up and why he believes it was so important to speak up.
I appreciate your passion. Are you suggesting that you're certain that none of us have non-white children? Because you reflected on your black son and you said none of us could understand.
Matt, stop. I'm not about to get sidetracked about the color of our children. We're talking about black kids. I reclaimed my time.
You said that.
I reclaimed my time. I know.
You want the discussion?
I know that
gentleman reclaimed his time.
I said I reclaimed my time. I already know that there are people on the other side that have black grandchildren. It is not about the color of your kids. It is about black males, black people in the streets that are getting killed.
Louisiana Congressman Cedric Richmond not backing down during a heated discussion on the House floor about the 2020 Police Reform Act, a bill making its way through the chamber after America watched a video of George Floyd die under the knee of a Minneapolis police officer.
We were having a serious hearing about police reform in America and how black people are disproportionately on the wrong end of excessive force and police shootings. And so that's a very serious issue in the black community. It should be a serious issue for the country. And I thought the Republicans were making a mockery of it.
His patience running out, Congressman Richmond pointed out what he called stalling in political games, unfit for the seriousness of the legislation.
I am not interested in a watered-down bill that mandates nothing. I'm not interested in studying Antifa. I'm not even interested in studying the Klan or sovereign citizens right now, because that is not the imminent threat that black men face on a daily basis. And right now, too often, it is law enforcement, those who were sworn to protect and to serve. And so all we're asking today is to deal with that. I don't mind dealing with other pieces of legislation. I don't mind dealing with other issues that you all may have.
His aim to redirect the measure's focus.
They were talking about President Trump. They were talking about abortion. They were talking about all of these tangential issues, when for black people, especially black males, this is a life or death issue. And so what I was trying to tell him was that we can talk about other things, but if you want to be serious about police reform, then let's just deal with police reform, because it's that serious. And so then it just went completely sideways.
Florida Representative Matt Gaetz pushing back.
If one of them happens to be your kid, I'm concerned about him too. And clearly I'm more concerned about him than you are. So let's be clear about that.
You're claiming you're more concerned for my family than I do? Who in the hell do you think you are?
If the shoe fits.
You don't know how much we care about our families.
Kick, dog, holler.
You should take those words down. I know you care about your family and love your family.
The gentleman will suspend. The gentleman will suspend. The time belongs to the gentleman from Louisiana.
Cedric, would you yield?
Was that a nerve?
Yeah, you damn right it was a nerve.
Gentleman.
Richmond still standing squarely behind his comments and confident the House bill will pass.
The point I was trying to make to him is, for a black male who has been on the opposite end of excessive force myself, and for a father of a Black male or Black child, period, we have to have that talk. We worry about our loved ones. And what I was trying to do in a very polite way is to just remind them what white privilege is. And when a part of white privilege is not having to have that worry, not having to have that conversation with your kid. And I started off by telling them that we're all a product of our life experiences. So it doesn't make me any better or worse than you, but it's different experiences. And this experience is critically important.
So important that people of all races have taken to the streets since Floyd's death on Memorial Day. There are protests around the world calling for racial justice and police reform.
At some point, enough is enough. And the anger that's on the streets, the frustration on the streets, I share that same frustration. I'm just in a different arena. I'm one of 55 Black caucus members, and we have a responsibility to pass legislation. But at the same time, I wasn't going to sit there and just let them make light of a real important issue that has thousands of people on the street.
The bill now goes before the Republican-controlled House and is not expected to pass. The Senate bill the Democrats called very narrow was blocked, and political experts say it's unlikely Congress will pass a bill this year dealing with systemic racism.
Council for a Better Louisiana, Cable, is urging the state to think about equity in public education. President Barry Irwin has just recently posted a passionate commentary. I also talked with him, and his passion about this is evident.
And honestly, the issues that we're talking about, equity in education, have been with us before. But one thing that the COVID-19 situation did was reveal them in ways that were just too big to ignore. Now that that's happened, they're on the surface. And as we cope with the COVID situation, we should also be thinking about, with the same sense of urgency, I believe, trying to deal with this education equity issue, which basically means making sure all of our students, even those from historically disadvantaged families, economically impacted families, have the same opportunities that every kid has in our state. Even when you're starting an early childhood education, you see barriers to quality child care for those kids from economically disadvantaged families. When you get to K-12 situations, you see students of color who are behind white students, sometimes 20 points in terms of English and math scores, and graduation rates reflect the same thing, about 10 points. And then when you get to past high school, you see an adult population in our state that many of them do not have anything beyond a high school degree, and that's particularly true of our African American adults. So that's kind of the landscape that we're dealing with. The good news is that we have begun to put in plans to address all of those things, and some of them are even going to start during this regular session. We had money before the COVID situation to invest some more money into early education, which was going to go directly to help economically disadvantaged families, primarily dealing with children of color. We had some legislation dealing with early literacy, dual enrollment, those types of things. Some of that got derailed. And then again, in higher education, we also had some dollars that we had from some surplus money that we were ready to invest in our adult population, getting them more skills and training while they're still in the workforce. Most all of those things got blown up by this. Now, that's just a crisis that happens. It's something we have to deal with, but it's something that we can not lose sight of. We need to go back to that. I think one thing that happened, because last year was an election year, we were able to focus on some things. Certainly legislators, as we saw this year, were focused a lot on things like tort reform and lowering insurance rates. But beyond that, there was a big focus that we picked up on early education. And even today, just being around the Capitol the last several days, we've heard legislator after legislator say, look, this early education thing is important. We can't do everything we need to do as a state, but we can focus on one or two things, and early education is one of them. That is foundational. I mean, that is foundational, that can make a difference all the way through life. It impacts kids right now, but it impacts families, because part of the whole notion of trying to get our state back to work is the notion that we have to have childcare in places so families can put their children there so they can go back to work. So I think we're seeing at least some of that momentum continuing, partially out of necessity because of getting the economy open. But, one way or the other, having legislators and that kind of sense of importance surrounding that important issue is really, I think, kind of refreshing.
The skies seemed a little off today, and there's a reason. That wide plume of Saharan dust in the upper atmosphere crossed the coastline Thursday.
Yeah, the good is that it makes it very tough for a tropical system, a hurricane, to form. It's dust, so it's not good for the air to breathe. Hazy skies with dust in the air is not a usual Louisiana forecast, but that's what we have today and part of the weekend. The 5,000-mile wide plume of dust from the Sahara Desert emerges from the desert every year. But the Weather Channel says this year's is especially intense and could set records for its high concentration. It has moved across the Atlantic and over the Caribbean, and now into our state from the Gulf, then spread across Gulf states and into the Tennessee Valley. It is forecast to reach a threat level of orange, not healthy for the sensitive, but Tennessee Vol fans probably won't mind. So tougher to breathe, probably interesting sky colors, and yet another reason to wear a mask that you have on hand for COVID-19.
We have some sad news from New Orleans. Blaine Kern, Sr., known as Mr. Mardi Gras, has died. He was an artist with a vision, ultimately turning the building of carnival floats into a multi-million-dollar business.
His giant Fantasyland warehouse on the river where floats were built and housed, Mardi Gras World, is a major tourist attraction. He was also, of course, a Louisiana legend. Blaine Kern Sr. was 93. And everyone, that's our show for this week. Remember, you can watch anything LPB anytime with our LPB app.
The download is free from your app store. You can catch LPB news and public affairs shows, as well as other Louisiana programs you've come to enjoy over the years. And please like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
For everyone at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Moreau.
And I'm Natasha Williams. Thanks for watching.
Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Entergy is proud to support programming on LPB and greener practices that preserve Louisiana.
The goal of our environmental and sustainability initiatives really is to ensure that our kids and future generations can be left with a cleaner planet.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.